Okay, and this is Impact Today, where we highlight big people doing big things. And today we got a special one, a really exciting one, because I know that every single person wants to either make an impact on the world, they want to try to find a way to communicate their message to get people on board. And I think one of the most important skills that's really undervalued today is the art of selling yourself. And I'm not talking about selling yourself only in terms of a used car salesman trying to sell a product, but each and every day we are selling ourselves, whether we know it or not. Some of us are doing it better than others. When we're younger, we're selling ourselves in terms of a child trying to get a toy from their mother, and their way of communication is through screaming and crying. When we're older,
I still use that one. I still use that one weekly. Cry all the time.
Right, and also we have, after that point, we have when you're in high school, you're trying to get that person to go to prom or that dance with you, and trying to communicate that message to say, hey, I'm cool, you'll like me, and we'll like each other. And then we get into the college situation where we're trying to communicate our brand and our value to a school to try to get admittance. And in the professional world, we're trying to communicate our message in so many different ways, in interviews, and trying to start a business, and so many different ways of trying to communicate our message. So today we got a really exciting one. We have Conor Mack, a good friend of mine, who's going to talk about selling. And I told him today that I'm going to put him on the spot. So I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at him.
You actually do that. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at him because it's about selling. You can learn all the tricks in the trade, but sometimes it takes it down to really salesman is really about what are you going to do in the act. When you get in front of a person, when you are going to ask that person out for a date, when you're going to try to sell that product. And so I'm going to put Conor on the spot today. We're going to have some fun today. But first and foremost, Conor, usually I talk about a bio of some individuals, the people that we bring onto the show. But Conor, who are you? Sell yourself. Who is Conor Mack? Let's just know a little bit about who you are.
Who is Conor Mack? Wow, that's a difficult one. I mean, simply put, I'm a salesman. I'm from Connecticut. I'm actually talking to you from my house in Connecticut. I went home for the weekend to hang out with my parents. So yeah, from Connecticut originally. Went to school up in the Worcester area. Moved to Boston right after that. Been doing sales for about let's say 5 years now. I'm an athlete. I played lacrosse in college. I'm a competitor. I love being part of a team, and really, really excited to be here. So that's really a high level overview of what I'm all about.
No, great. I mean, I'm super excited. Now let's talk a little bit about selling. First and foremost, what would you say, what is selling, and how did you get into it?
It's actually kind of a weird story. I fell into selling. I've always been, and this will make sense later, but I've always been a competitor. And I think it's a huge aspect of what goes into selling. But I had a few jobs right after college. I was jumping, around every few months, doing some marketing roles. And then I found myself in this recruiting sales hunter position. And it was the first time in my professional career where I was actually thriving. And so it wasn't more of a, hey, I want to go do this. It was more of a, I fell into this role, and wow, I'm really good at it. And wow, I actually want to go to work every day. And wow, I'm good at this. So that's how I fell into it.
And for most people, when they get into selling, what would you say selling is, and maybe what selling is not? Some misconceptions that people have. People imagine sales maybe being some used car salesman, but what is your thoughts on that whole mix?
To me, selling is all about, and I think it depends, right? If you're working for a company and trying to sell a product, selling it's definitely that kind of sports and competitive mentality, but it's also, and this goes along with personal branding. It's really psychology, and it's being yourself. I'm not a huge proponent of trying to swindle someone or saying something that's going to convince them to do something they don't want to do. If someone doesn't want to do something, they're not going to do it. No matter how slick you are, no matter how nice of a suit you have on, it's not going to work. So I really look at it as a getting to know someone and a psychological approach. Where's this person coming from? Sometimes you're trying to talk to someone and they're just having a really bad day. You never know what's going on with them. So just getting on their level and understanding that people are just people, especially when, you know, a younger gentleman such as myself talking with CEOs and really, you know, powerful people, it's makes it easier to have those conversations when you look at it as just a conversation. So it kind of puts them on the same playing field as yourself. So yeah, I would look at sales as, and it's kind of broad, but just it's really psychology, and it's getting to know people, and it's being yourself. I think in a world where there's so many different products that are so similar and so many people saying the same thing, the easiest way for someone to remember you or to want to work with you or to want to hire you or to any of those things, your mother want to give you that toy that you're crying about, is to do something different. Okay. And that, I think, is just being yourself. Unfortunately, this day and age will make you more different than pretty much 90% of the people out there.
But how do you find your way to be yourself?
No, it's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. No, it's very difficult. I mean, that's a great question. Well, I think, and you know, being yourself isn't just doing all the things you think you should do. Like, I think, you know, sometimes being myself has been telling someone, you know, I don't like what you're doing, or I don't think that's a good idea, or having really hard conversations. That is being yourself. Being yourself is also saying no to a lot of opportunities, not just, you know, I don't want to work with anyone. I don't want to sell to just anyone. I mean, that's one of the reasons you and I hooked up originally. I met you, and, you know, I always tell that story where I saw you were doing the 365 days with AK, and I was like, wow, that guy has something special going on. I want to at least introduce myself to him. That was all. I mean, I wasn't selling myself. I was just looking at you and thought it would be cool to get to know you from what I was hearing you say. And then I went from there. So it's like, it's almost unexplainable, but if, you know, if that makes sense, it's just, that's what I've got.
I mean, ideally.
Like, does that make sense though? Like, is that making sense what I'm saying?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think the problem is everybody's always assuming that there's like a secret formula.
No, there really isn't.
Right.
Except for, I mean, if you're going to say there's one secret formula of like straight sales, like if you are a business development rep or an account executive in a sales role, it's just purely hard work. You have to be the first one in, you have to be the last one out. That is the only formula of success. As far as what to say, when to say it, when to email, when to call, when to do this, when to do that. I mean, there's unlimited scenarios that can work or not work. So I never focus on that. I focus on, and one of my mentors, this guy, Dave Toronto, always told me, have 5 good conversations a day. That's all I focus on. Whether that is via an email, whether that is via LinkedIn, whether that's connecting with an old friend or an old colleague on the phone, or reaching out to someone new, 5 a day, and you're going to be successful in sales.
And so I mean, let's go a little bit more detail regarding that particular strategy that your mentor was talking about. What does it mean to have a good conversation, right? To say hello back, and then it's done. What does it mean to have a good conversation?
No, that's a really, really good question. A really, really good conversation, or I guess a good conversation as far as from a business perspective, would be you're moving towards something. Okay. So let's say, you know, you haven't heard from a client in a while and there was some sort of update on their website that you saw them part of. So you reached out and you said, you know, congratulations. I would say that and they said, thank you. I would say that's a good conversation. They thanked you for it. They got back to you. I mean, in my book, that would be a good conversation. Very simply put.
Right. And I think we're going into what I really like about it is in terms of a conversation, right? You're talking about selling in conversations. Mm-hmm. Each and every one of us in all of our capacities, we're having these conversations all day. Mm-hmm. And sometimes don't realize that we are actually selling, right? So for example, I might be walking down the street and I say, I'm trying to find directions.
Well, you sold me. I mean, really, that's how we met. And you didn't even know you were selling me. You were just being yourself. You took out I'll never forget it. You took out your camera. We were at the speaking class at GA, took out your camera. You started doing the interview with Devin, and you just being yourself, and you were talking about what you're doing, what you're all about. I immediately stopped and listened. I was leaving, stopped, came back in, listened, walked over, introduced myself. You were selling right there. and you didn't even know it.
Right. So what do you think for some people stops them from being good salespeople? Or, I mean, in some ways, how you said it, even in partly good communicators.
I think, and this goes a lot of different ways, but just trying too hard. Like everyone can tell when you're not being genuine and when you're trying too hard. It really is just about, it's as simply put as that, but also as complex as that. Like really just, if you just go out there and ask questions and see where it goes, that's how I go about it. I try not to have some like end goal in mind. I just go in and see if they're interested in what I have to offer. If they're interested in learning more, great. If they're not, I at least try to get something out of it. Do you know someone who might? That's really as simply as I see it.
Well, one of the things that people talk about today, especially in the business world, you can even probably do that even when you're thinking about when we're younger, trying to ask that person out for a date. Or it could be trying to reach out to that company because you're looking for a potential job opportunity. Right? And it always comes to this thing about the cold call.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, that's the best way to deal with the cold call. I see it as the most absurd act in human nature. It's like you're calling a random person who doesn't know of you, trying to get them to sell or trying to get them to buy something from you in under 30 seconds. Like if you just look at it as a complete absurdity, it takes away all the fear. That's how I view it. It's like, it's absurd. They're not even going to remember you if you mess up. So you could mess up, call back in 2 weeks. They probably won't even remember you. And I think people, if you're going to talk about the cold call, you're not trying to close the deal via the cold call. You're trying to get them interested via the cold call. I always like to say you should be cold calling to get a meeting, or you should be cold calling to set up a briefing or a demo for your product. So we should, I mean, really, when I cold call someone, I don't have them on the phone for more than a minute, unless they want to be. Unless they start engaging me and they're asking me questions, I tell them a snippet of what we do. I see if they're interested or if they're the person of contact, and then I set an additional time where there's an agenda of we're going to be talking about these things for this amount of time. So like the cold call is just a tool to get you toward telling them more, not to close the deal.
And I think for some of us, I mean, for me, when I hear that, it actually relieves some stress and some pressure when you think about that, because understanding that when you said you have to do this in a minute, and if you don't, the whole thing just goes to kaput. So if you think about it in steps, like, no, I'm just trying to introduce a conversation. I'm not trying to sell you. I just want to get to the next step, and then the next step and the next step, and it builds off one another. So how do you prepare? I mean, one of the things is when you are, I mean, at least doing a cold call, one of the things is—
I will say, and then sorry, just to back up for a second, I would say as far as like the asking out the girl or just doing the cold call, there has to be a certain amount. It's not cockiness. You just have to almost not care. Does that make sense? Like you're just going to do it. You see a girl you want to go ask out on a date, just walk up to her and say, "Hey, how's it going? I'm Connor." I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Like that's how I do it. And the people that I see that are successful at all those things are the people that just do it. It's like Nike, just do it. It really is that simple, but it's just difficult to make that first step. You know, people are afraid to make that first step, but it is that easy just to do it.
And any tips that you could give to people about taking that first step, or just do it, as Nike says?
Say it again.
Any tips that you would say on just doing it or taking that first step?
Practice. Really. I took it upon myself. I mean, honestly, even when I met you, I'd planned that I wanted to go to an event by myself and meet and have a conversation with someone new and make myself uncomfortable. And I did that for an entire year. So every month I would go, I would even pay for my own, outside of my company, go to events in the Boston area and just try to meet people. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, I'm not this, I know all these people and everything now, but I can say I know some people that I've met that are really cool, successful, and, would have my back if I ever needed anything, people from just doing that alone. That's all I did.
So being willing to getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. You got to be definitely willing to be uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable right now. I've never done a webinar, you know, but
you seem so relaxed and chill, Conor Mack. You got a cool name though. You got Conor Mack, so it's
you like
you already got a leg up.
First names. You can't. It's just you say it as one name. So.
Okay. No, great. I mean, when we're thinking about some of the work that we have to do, this show was Impact Today about big people doing big things and how they're making an impact on the world, and that can come in so many different capacities. Mm-hmm. So what I want to do is, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the salesmanship process. And I think a lot of people here are trying to understand, like, what are some specifics that we can do, the steps that we can take to actually go through this, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is like prospecting. What is prospecting and how do you do it effectively?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I truthfully use LinkedIn about 99% of the time for prospecting. You can search pretty much anyone. I mean, again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to sell a product, I'm assuming is what we're talking about here. You can search by company. What I used to do is I would just make lists per company, and I have this, I mean, I can even send it to you if you'd want, but I would make a list of pretty much everyone with a title that I thought might be able to help me get to the right person. Mm-hmm. I would write them all down or type them all out, and then I would move them over as I spoke with them. So I'd say, you know, AK spoke with him, not the right person, or AK spoke with him, could be the right person. And then I would just make this kind of web of these companies. I think, again, it's one of people overthink it. They go in and they're trying, oh, that's not the right person to talk with. They don't buy, or that person doesn't do that. I just go in, I try to call as many people as possible, especially in a large organization. These people, they don't even know each other. So never going to run into the thing of like them telling someone about you calling them. And honestly, who would even care? You're just trying to find out where the right person is.
This guy called me today asking me for this person. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly. So I do take kind of a shotgun approach. So any titles that look like they would be people that would purchase from me, I call them. And I just simply ask them, AK, Conor Mack calling here from X, Y, and Z. We do this, this, and that. Do you know anything about that? Do you ever handle those things? You know who I might want to talk with? 99% of the time, they at least point me somewhere. And I've gotten so many situations, especially in larger companies, where they point me to someone, and that person points me to someone, and that person points me to someone, and then I'm at the right person. And it took 3 or 4 times, but that's how I prospect, and I've been really successful doing it that way.
So, I mean, even with prospecting, one thing I think is always important, because we're always talking about the sale. But at the same time, I think that one of the most important things, and I was having a conversation with somebody about this earlier, was identifying your value and what you bring to the table. And what you bring to the table might be different from one person to the next. Any thoughts on just how do you identify like what your value is to somebody or to a corporation? Or for you, you have a product, and how do you know they're going to be interested in this product over another one? So how do you identify value and what people may be interested in jumping on board with?
Yeah, I have a different viewpoint on that than most salespeople. I truly think that conversation happens before you even are taking the job. Like I always look to work for places that I can get behind and believe in what they're doing and actually can see value in it myself, because the way I show value is just, I believe in it. That's what I've found the best way to show value is. I believe in the product. I've seen it work. It's not, you know, I wouldn't be able to sell like as a used car salesman. I just don't do it that way. I have more like a passionate approach, more like we want to help you approach, and not trying to like getting into the bolts and whistles of selling.
Okay. But there came to a point even before that one, right? You decided that there is this company that I want to work for. Mm-hmm. And you said, based on my background, I think this is a realistic chance that I can get this job.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I know where you're going with this.
So at what point did you feel like, okay, I have the skills, I have, well, obviously, I mean, the passion, but I have the skills, I have the resources, I have the value that I feel like they would be interested in this particular product? How do you get to that point? And there's a follow-up question to that as well.
Okay. So are you talking about like to get the job itself? Like how do you even find yourself in the role?
Yeah. How do you find your own self-value?
So, I mean, what I did was I would even reach out. So 2 jobs ago, so when I was about a year and a half into the workforce, I started reaching out to recruiters. What do you guys look for in someone? You know, and then I would, okay, I should probably start looking for a job that does something like that, because that's what I always call it the job after the job.
Okay.
So the job you're taking, what are you going to learn so that if you ever wanted to leave, you're taking a step upward. So you need to find those things out, and it is simple as asking them, asking the recruiters, asking people who work there. Using that also goes back to meeting people and being yourself and getting out there. The last job, actually, when I took the job I'm at now, I knew randomly through my network like 3 people who had known of my job. So I asked about them. Do they have a good reputation? Are they good people? And they were all like, yeah. I was like, okay. You never know for sure, but I had some actual evidence of this company being a good fit for me.
Right.
So I think it all goes back to just getting out there, because you just never know. It's such a small world.
And like you said, continually about being yourself. And when I heard you say something along the lines of asking a recruiter, sometimes it might just be asking a friend, asking a colleague. Like, you might feel like you're really strong in a particular area, but you ask somebody else, like, yeah, no, you're actually stronger in this area.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to come to that self-realization, but sometimes by asking other people, like, what is my value? I'm kind of confused, because sometimes it's harder to find your own value because you live it all day and you know your pros, cons, and your weaknesses. But when you ask somebody else, especially if you're genuine all the time, and see who you are for real, they can identify, man, this is what you do really, really well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I didn't find, okay, so that's a great point. I didn't find my own value. I started to see my value via other people telling me. I was working at places and they're like, man, Conor, you can really set meetings. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's fun. Like, yeah, I'm definitely pretty good at it, but when like 5, 6, 7, all these different people were telling me at different companies I worked at, like, you're really good at setting meetings. I started seeing that, my obviously sales and business strategy overall, but really I'm a door opener is if you were to ask me, is my number one. I understand, and I am good at getting in front of people. And that is what I've learned, not via myself, because I mean, I always knew I was doing that, but I didn't realize how good I was at doing it until other people were telling me.
Right. So we're gonna have some fun now. We're gonna have some fun.
I like that shirt, by the way. How do I get one of those shirts?
Well, it costs $3.99. I'm gonna sell this.
So off topic. I'm sorry.
I will get you one. See, I sold it. I did something. I don't know what I did. I sold it.
Yeah, hey, I'm in. You got me.
But
right.
No, we're gonna have some fun. I mean, I really, since I've known you, you can really go off the cuff. And one of the things that we really want to do is kind of not role play it a little bit, but I want people to understand like the process you go through.
Okay.
When you are going through a situation, right?
Okay.
So the first one is I'm going to do a situation that I'll say I'm connected to, right? I'm doing I'm a startup organization, and I am trying to partner with a big organization.
Got it.
Right? Trying to partner with a big organization. Now, this big organization already has a lot of money, a lot of resources, and in my head, I'm thinking, why do they need me when they can probably get whatever they want? So I am a small business owner.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there, though. Like, that's why. So, and I think another big part of this is mindset. Okay. So, like, I would look at that differently. I would look at it as what I have to offer is special. I help people. These people at least want to hear about this. So there's a difference. You're like going into it as they want to meet me, as opposed to why would they want to meet me? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Tip number 1, mindset when you come into the situation. So it's almost like you don't want to put them at this high pedestal. Yeah. Understand it makes sense. So ideally, you don't want to go into a situation where you almost devalue yourself.
You've already lost. It's like if you're going into a football game and you're like, man, those guys are so big and fast and strong and awesome. You have no shot. Okay. You go in there and say, we can do this. even if you're not, I mean, I'm a firm believer of just lying to yourself from a sports perspective. We can beat them, all that stuff, rah stuff. I'm a huge proponent of that. Definitely.
Okay. So, I mean, we got the step one, right? And I think that was really, really helpful. It's to prepare for this type of situation. You need to come into it with the right situation. So let's say you're trying to go on a date with a girl. Don't say, oh, this girl's like the hottest girl in the world. And I'm just.
I can't share those secrets.
The Conor Mack secrets.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No. It's fun. It's not supposed to be. You can have fun, Conor. You can have fun. But ideally, right? So it's a really big thing, though. It's like your mindset is a big play in how you come into a situation, right? So we come into the situation right? We have the right mindset. Now it's about to be that time about, okay, I want to contact this person. Now my idea is, how do you identify maybe the person that you want to talk to that's going to be most interested in, I am selling footballs and this is a big pump company, right? So how would I identify who I'd want to talk to in that particular situation? What process would you take?
I mean, I really think it's as simple as going throughout the organization. So I start as high as possible. Okay. I don't start low and go high within. I don't start calling not to say, whatever. I don't start at the receptionist and move up to the CEO. I start at the CEO and move down. I'll start at the highest possible person that I can get a hold of, and then go down. And then what you do is you ask them, is it okay if I told AK, you sent me his way? So it's just a little bit, you're almost like making a warm introduction for yourself within the organization. Right. Even if you only had one conversation, and again, you just ask them for permission. They always say yes, if you're genuine about it. So then you're calling someone else. It's not really cold anymore, because the first thing you'd say is, hey, AK, Conor Mack, Bob, spoke with Bob. He thought I'd want to talk with you.
Okay.
Completely different conversation than you just calling in cold.
Okay, so you would always use the reference like, hey, I just spoke with him. He suggests that I speak with you regarding this.
Whatever it is, the pump. Yes, the footballs. But I'm a huge proponent of starting high and then going low.
Starting high and going low.
And honestly, it's a weird point in time, because the higher level people, I swear, don't get called anymore. And like I could spend hours talking about this, but as far as like cold calling, everyone says cold calling's dead and don't cold call anymore. I cold call people weekly, and I'll go like 5 for 5 calling CEOs of companies. Not the massive companies, but fairly well-sized companies. CEOs will just pick up almost like confused as to why you're calling, because they don't get calls anymore. Oh. Everyone's sitting, and that also goes back to being yourself and doing something different. Everyone's sitting there typing, sending emails. CEO or the COO is getting 700 emails a day, probably gets 4 calls a day. And they answer, hello? Like, they almost want to talk. They want to talk to someone at this point. So that's another, going back to, differentiating yourself. Okay.
So we'll do another format. I think we've talked about this before. Is I'm in the same situation, right? I feel, let's say somebody's on the phone, like, you know what? When I pick up the phone, my mind goes blank.
Yeah.
I know people like that. Like, I pick up the phone, my mind goes blank. I don't know what to do. But what I want to do instead is, I'm going to send them an email. I'm going to send them all the specs, all the features.
You're never going to. Do you read those emails that you get? The search engine optimization, those 80 emails you get a day?
The one that's pages of pages.
Dear sir, madam, dear sir / madam email. Do you get those ones? You don't
get those, as a matter of fact.
I get those all the time. But again, maybe if what you're offering is spectacular and you're the only company in the market doing it, and this and that, sure, they might respond. But more times than not, if you're trying to break through the noise, email is not always the best way to go. I think it's a very big part of it, but I just think it's a lot easier if you're doing both phone and email and asking for introductions and doing it all together as one, as opposed to just one route.
But you kind of said it like in the email and the phone. Let's say you want to do it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
If your whole goal for that could be that cold email, that cold call, would still be the same. You wouldn't send that email out and put down all
exactly. The email is just like the phone call. You give, I'm talking less than 2 sentences about what you do, and then you ask them what their availability is to meet, or if they're the right person to talk with, or some sort of call to action question at the end of it.
Right. No, I think that's helpful. And
it's another good point. This day and age with the cell phones, you have to think about them opening it on their cell phone, especially higher level people who are always on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Emails look even larger on the cell phone. So if you even send a paragraph, if you open a paragraph on your phone, you're like, whoa, that's a lot of information, even though it's really not. It's only like 2 sentences.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing to be wary of as far as reaching out to people. I always like to view it as they would open it on their cell phone. So if it's too much to go on a cell phone, email, it's too much.
Right. And we're thinking, oh, I got to tell them. But when you think about the same situation, when somebody sends you any type of marketing materials and you see paragraphs upon paragraphs, you don't open it yourself. So why do you expect when you do it to somebody else that they'll do that?
I don't know.
Right?
It's like, if you're going to go back to the dating example, it's like if you ran up to someone on the street and started just blurting out all the information about yourself to them, they'd probably call the police. Like, you know what I mean? It's similar.
Right. So no, I think there's, a lot of good stuff. What would you say is, you've talked about really being yourself. What would you say is one tip that individuals can do today to become better at not only selling themselves, but selling their product, getting people on board? What would you say is one thing you can say is work on this and you'll become better?
I think it's the 5 conversations a day thing. Okay. That'll get you the practice in. That'll get you really uncomfortable. When I first started doing it, this gentleman, Dave Toronto, he told me to do it just not outside of work. So people on trains, people in coffee shops, try to talk to 5 random people a day, just strike up a conversation. And all of a sudden you just start getting used to doing it. And when you're used to just having conversations with people you don't know, that's pretty much what sales is for the most part. Initially, it's having a conversation with someone who has no idea who you are. So I would say that is a great way to start. And the sales books are a good complement to that. But for me personally, I'm not someone who learns by reading about it. I'm someone who learns by doing it, unfortunately. So I have to do things and mess up on them 1,000 times before I get better at them. But once you learn something, it's just like sports. You and I played sports. Mm-hmm. Guess on the football, I played lacrosse in college. So, getting the stick in your hand, 3-4 hours a day, that's how you get good. It's just like anything else. You just got to practice it.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. There's a lot of good information, and I have a feeling this is not going to be the first time we have this conversation on the podcast or on the show, because this is one of the biggest things.
Glad, yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about this. When I started this, sometimes my selling isn't always a product. At first it was building a team. So how do I effectively communicate our message of empower to play to people to say, I want you to get involved. I want you to become these advocates. Yeah. And especially we're new. There's already organizations that are out there. So how do you find your differentiator that's going to get people interested, and not only interested, but to say, I'm gung-ho about the idea and I want to get involved, Yeah. And I think all of us need this skill in every aspect of our life. So this is going to be the only time we have this conversation.
No, I think you were definitely doing all the right things. I always, hilarious story. I don't want to embarrass you too much, but we had a miscommunication. We'd met, and then we were going to meet. I thought we were doing it over the phone, but you wanted to meet in person, which is so much better. In person is so much better. And I wasn't expecting you to show up. Remember, we ended up spending like an hour and a half together. That was unbelievable. Just that stuff where you wanted to come meet me in person. It wasn't just a phone call. Meet me in person, and you were actually more of talking. You wanted me to tell you about me as opposed to you telling more about the organization, because you wanted to see if I was a good fit. Mm-hmm. So it was, those are all the right things, and that's what really struck home for me.
No, Thank you, Connor. And I always end these shows with this one, right? All of us want to make an impact on the world.
Okay.
What is your way that you feel like you're making an impact on the world and making this place a better place?
I mean, truthfully, a lot of it is, that's why I wanted to partner with you and help you guys out. Just because like where I'm at in my career right now, you know, I don't have as much time as I would like to give towards things like that, but I really like to do it via sports. So I usually coach lacrosse during the summers. That's how I give back.
Right.
I think sports is a great way. I mean, I think the best way to learn and teach the youth. So helping you is one way of doing it. And then on my own, it really is via lacrosse. I do a lot of, I'm actually playing in a memorial tournament this Saturday for a kid we played high school lacrosse with. So most of the giving back I do is via lacrosse.
Great. And I know, I mean, sports was a big game changer for me. So Conor, I just want to say thank you so much for providing just, sometimes when you get information that seems sometimes so simple, but sometimes the most simple information is the most challenging.
It's honestly sometimes hard to explain it because it's like so simple, but it's not at the same time. So I'm still trying to figure it out myself. And that's another thing, like it's an ongoing thing. It's not like, I mean, realistically, I'm only 27. I don't think I know everything by any means. I think I have a lot to learn. These are just some of the things that I've had success with so far. So,
and one of the most powerful, I actually consider that the most powerful trait to have is the ability to say that I do not know everything, but I'm willing to find out.
Yeah.
All right. So I
appreciate that.
So yeah, great. So this was Impact Today, hosted by Coach AK, founder and president of Empower to Play. We had Conor Mack on the show talking about sales and macking.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
Right.
All right, okay.
And next we got we're gonna have somebody on the show really excited about skydiving and taking risks. I went skydiving not too long ago. First time I did it, I was screaming, kicking and screaming. And the second time I was still kicking and screaming, but not so much. But
I can't do it. I can't skydive. I'm telling you right now, never doing it.
Exactly. But we'll come back again, but this is Impact Today, where we highlight big people doing big things and how they're making an impact on the world. We're happy to have Conor on the show. Until next time, thank you.
Thanks again.